kind of the normal. It felt like I was becoming a new mom, so it was very interesting and helpful, very, very helpful.
You know, there was that self-conscious part of me, like, will I be accepted even though I'm not perfect?
What I like the most is that she really listens.
The support that she gives me is special because she does it with love, and it's just natural, you know. That's all I could say. It just feels like somebody that I've known since I was little.
You know, I said to Jeanette, Jeanette, you're supposed to be with me for 5 years. Jeanette said, yeah, I know, I'm going to be with you guys for 5 years. That's when I said, well, I guess I can trust her. She's going to be with us for 5 years.
Yo creo que quizás pasó como a la segunda visita o algo así, como que ya nos presentamos formalmente. Y luego ya creo que en la segunda visita estaba como todo más tranquilo, como muy... como que el ambiente era muy familiar. Entonces... yo me sentí muy cómoda.
I felt like she cared for Sparrow too, and Sparrow really enjoyed it. Yeah, she knew when Gabby came we were going to be making something or learning something, and she'd instantly start digging through Gabby's bags to find out what activity we were going to do.
Not only did we get the assistance with this program, but we also made a really good friend. I'm happy to call Gabby our friend.
I think the relationship that we've built has been just, she's a part of the family.
Call the February 5th, 2024 meeting of the Local Agency Formation Commission to order. Can we have roll call, please?
Yes, thank you. Commissioner Ward.
Here.
Commissioner Gonzalez.
Here.
Commissioner Cole. Commissioner Cole.
Doesn't appear your audio is working.
We'll come back to you. Commissioner Horsley.
Here.
Commissioner McGordy. Commissioner Roden.
Here.
Alternate Commissioner Kristen.
Here.
Alternate Commissioner Crane. Alternate Commissioner Hashik. And Chair Mulhern.
Here.
Thank you. We do have a quorum.
Okay, thank you for that. And I believe that also the board needs to vote to approve Ms. Cole's participation via Zoom. And as it relates to AB 2449. And so, Ms. Cole, if your audio is now working, if you could state the reason that you're participating remotely, and then we can vote to include you in the meeting.
Absolutely. Can you hear me now?
We can, thank you.
Oh, perfect. I got halfway down my road and I have a huge oak tree blocking my access.
Okay.
So I last minute Zoom.
Thank you very much. I'm glad that you're safe. Are there any commissioners that object to Ms. Cole participating remotely? Okay, seeing none. We will move on to public expression. The Commission welcomes participation in the LAFCo meeting. Any person may address the Commission on any subject within the jurisdiction of LAFCo which is not on the agenda. There is a 3-minute limit, and no action will be taken at this meeting. There are no members of the public in the room. Are there any members of the public on Zoom?
No.
Okay, thank you very much. We can move on to item 3A. Announcement of commission appointments by the County Board of Supervisors and updates on vacancies. Uma, did you want to take this item?
Thank you, Chair Mulhern. The only updates are from the Board of Supervisors to date. So that is reappointment of Commissioners McGordy, Mulhern, and alternate Commissioner Hashik. The City Select Committee has not yet met. However, our terms for LAFCo purposes note there are no expirations that are not otherwise noted. We do still have a vacancy at the alternate public member. We've received no letters of interest or applications, so that has been extended to March 1st.
Thank you. What is the best way for commissioners to help spread the word about that? Share the website link, or it is also advertised in several newspapers, right?
We did do 2 advertisements in the newspapers, however, they're $600 a piece. So we did not advertise the most recent extension, but we do encourage the commissioners to take this back and spread the word through your representative agencies. And if you know of anyone personally, then to please share the website or have them call me.
Thank you. Okay, we move on to item 3B, selection of 2024 officers. The members of the commission will elect a chair, vice chair, and treasurer for calendar 2024.
So I usually will take the nominations, and so I welcome nominations for the position of chair.
I would move Momo Hearn continue to be chair if she's willing.
I am willing, yes.
I'll second it.
Thank you, and we'll do a roll call vote. Commissioner Roden?
Did you say Roden?
Roden?
Yes.
Commissioner Horsley?
Yes.
Commissioner Cole?
Yes.
Commissioner Gonzalez?
Yes.
Commissioner Ward?
Yes.
And Commissioner Mulhern.
Yes. Okay, thank you very much for that. So moving on to nominations for vice chair and treasurer.
Well, they could be separate.
They could be 2 different people. Yes, absolutely. Commissioner Horsley.
I would like to nominate our current vice chair and treasurer. I think he does an excellent job.
Well, thank you.
Especially with the revenue and expenses, and I'd like to nominate him for vice chair. I'll second.
There are, it's, I've been doing this for years. If anyone wants to step up, feel free.
Oh yeah, we're all jumping forward, believe me.
I think I was talked into originally the treasurer, so it took a while to get somebody to come forward. So thank you for your comment.
And just to clarify, was that for both positions as he currently serves vice chair and treasurer?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. And there's no public comment in the room, but is there any public comment online? I don't think so. So roll call, please.
Commissioner Cole?
Yes.
Commissioner Horsley?
Yes.
Commissioner Roden?
Yes.
Commissioner Gonzalez?
Yes.
Commissioner Ward?
Yes.
And Chair Mulhern.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. So next we are going to be discussing the standing committee appointments. So we'll start first with the executive committee, and that is the chair, vice chair, and treasurer, or a third commissioner appointed by the chair. And because the vice chair and treasurer are the same person, we often have a third member. And this executive committee is responsible for administrative oversight, personnel matters, and budget preparation and review. So I'm looking for nominations for the executive committee and its makeup.
Question.
Yes.
I think in our bylaws that the chair appoints the positions.
That is correct. For both the standing committees, the chair appoints the positions for ratification by the commission.
Okay.
So whoever you want, throw
What?
us in there.
I mean, I'm happy to, for consistency, keep the same makeup that we had in 2023, unless there are members, either Commissioner Roden or Commissioner Gonzalez, that wish not to serve, or members of the body that are just really anxious to serve on an executive committee or standing committee. Because we have some new member, Commissioner Roden.
I don't mean to interrupt. Sorry. I just wanted to say that I would like to continue.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, we do have some newer members, and so I wasn't sure if people wanted to still get their feet underneath them for another year before they jumped into one of those roles. Commissioner Gonzalez, are you still willing to serve as policies and procedures?
If you'll have me.
Okay.
Another question?
Yes.
I think
Ward.
an alternate member can also do it too, an alternate to run.
That's correct. We have had alternates serve in the past.
I'm looking at you. You interested?
You're looking
Commissioner
at me?
Christian.
No, unfortunately, I have to decline. I'm with our CSD. Next year, though, if there's an opening for a public member, I might raise my hand.
It might take next year to find one.
Huh?
It might take next year to find one. We've been at it for a year already.
All right, well, I'd like to move forward with continuing the slate of executive committee members being the chair, the vice chair treasurer, and Commissioner Roden, and the policies and procedures committee being Commissioner Gonzalez, Chair Mulhern, and Commissioner Roden. And should we go ahead and just have a roll call vote for that?
Sure, we can do that. Commissioner Ward,
Yes.
Commissioner Gonzalez,
Yes.
Commissioner Cole,
Yes.
Commissioner Horsley,
Yes.
Commissioner Roden,
Yes.
and Chair Mulhern.
Yes.
Thank you. Passes unanimously.
Thank you. We will move on to the consent calendar. The following consent items are expected to be routine and non-controversial and will be acted on by the commission in a single action without discussion, unless a request is made by a commissioner or a member of the public for discussion or separate action. We have before us the minutes from December 4th, 2023, the December 2023 claims and financial report, the January 2024 claims and financial report, and the ratify support letter for proposed Russian River facility. And I'm looking for pens indicating you'd like to have a discussion on certain items. So I have Commissioner Horsley and Commissioner Ward.
Thank you. On page 13, it's just a how this chart is put together. Just a quick question on Treasury coming across. When I look at revenue, expenses, operation applications, the numbers don't add up to the Treasury amount, even what's been put in the checking. So I just wondered, does some of that go into investments and it comes out of that Treasury, or how does that Treasury number come about?
Can you, wait, could you explain where you are? Because I
Yeah,
want to follow your
page-
question and I don't.
Okay, page 13?
Yeah.
Okay, and you look at budget summary,
Mm-hmm.
and then fund balances, Treasury, and you go across?
Yes, thank you. The Treasury numbers come from the Munis reports from the county. So those, the only withdrawals out of that account go from the Treasury into our checking account with Savings Bank of Mendocino County. So the funds changed from November to December by 100,000 because we withdrew 100,000 and put those into our checking account for payment of claims.
Okay, so even though total expenses, which is above that, doesn't equal that amount, it'll show up next month maybe?
Well, the expenses, maybe I don't understand the question, but the expenses will be different than that amount because we do not do, and I'm sorry, I don't know the name they call it, the vouchers or the warrants to the, we're not a special district, so we don't do them the same way with the county auditor's office. We just request a lump sum, and then we make our payments of claims through our own checking account.
That explains it. Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Ward.
Thank you. I am looking for the page number, but I had a question on our council for December for $135. It was consent to an annex.
Yes.
Do you know what that is for?
Yes, one of the tasks that we are working on are an update to our out-of-agency services agreement policies and the covenant or the consent to annex form. So the legal counsel was asked to review the changes, the draft changes to the consent form. And then those documents will be going to the Policies and Procedures Committee for further review.
Okay, so that wasn't an application.
No,
Okay.
it wasn't. Thank you.
The second one was the billing for the room here for the county. It was $825. It's in January, but we didn't meet in January. Was that for a previous month?
It was because we had reserved it already for January. We were given the option to pay for the whole year up front before the costs changed for the year, so we went ahead and paid for the full year, and I believe we can request refunds for the months that we don't use, and I'll have to confirm that with the clerk of the board.
Okay. And I believe you're putting it, if I'm not mistaken, you're putting it on our monthly reporting. It should be rents. I think you have it under office equipment.
We do have it under office supplies.
But isn't it a rental?
We could certainly do
I'm
that.
not going to have
do
to
it that
go
way.
back and do it or request you do it. It just seems like that's where trying to keep our budget, you know, so we know what we expect for next year, what our rental costs will be.
Okay, noted. We can make that change.
And then lastly, I noticed that, you know, our council, Marcia Birch, is here. Is it? I know in the past, before Marcia, the chair would talk with the executive officer to see if she's necessary for her to be involved in the meeting, just to save some money. Sometimes our meetings are so uneventful that it's not necessary. I'll just bring that up, and that's something the chair and the EO can talk through the agenda for that particular meeting. Maybe save a couple.
Sure, thank you for that. And I do work with Director Hinman on the agenda, so we can take a closer look at that as agenda items move forward. And if you need any help looking at the refund process for when we don't use the board chambers, please let me know.
Thank you.
Yep, Commissioner Horsley.
Do you know how much of the rental cost for this room is IT?
I do not know that. I believe it's an hourly fee, $75 an hour for the space, but I'm not sure the IT part of that.
Thank you.
Are there any members of the public that wish to comment or have questions on the consent calendar? Seeing no hands.
Make a motion to approve.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Roden?
Yes.
Commissioner Horsley?
Yes.
Commissioner Cole?
Yes.
Commissioner Cole?
Yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Ward?
Yes.
Commissioner Gonzalez?
Yes.
And Chair Mulhern?
Yes. Thank you. With that, there are no public hearings today and no workshops. So we'll move on to item 7A, the mid-year financial and work program report. And the commission will receive the executive officer's report on the mid-year budget and work program status for fiscal year 23-24. Did you want to do a brief update and then we can go to questions from the board?
Yes, thank you. I do have a brief presentation to go through the staff report. Okay, thank you for your patience. The staff report for the mid-year budget review and work program report starts on page 32 of your agenda packet. This report covers the first half of fiscal year 23-24 through December 31st. We are going to go through the revenue, expenses, applications, reserves, and contingencies. The total adopted revenue for this fiscal year was $341,000. Of that, $56,000 was a cash balance from the previous fiscal year. Based on the last draft Munis report we've received for this year, which is from November, approximately 99% of apportionment fees have been collected. Additional revenue has been in application fees and interest. Expenses, which include staffing, services and supplies, and the work plan studies, are lower than expected for mid-year, primarily due to not filling the clerk position, the low conference attendance, and savings in the legal counsel budget. The budget for the work plan provided the option to contract out for studies. However, with the addition of a planner analyst to Hinman and Associate Consulting, we've been able to prepare the studies mostly in-house. We have recently contracted with a consultant to support the development phase of the studies. However, it's expected that we will still come under budget in the work plan by the end of the fiscal year. Processing of the applications is billed at LAFCo's adopted service rates, which reimburse contract staff billing and also provides revenue for LAFCo. Active applications have included 5 proposals, one of which was completed within the first half of the fiscal year. Reserves are on target at approximately $130,000, which includes both the legal and operational reserves. Additionally, there's approximately $37,000 for work plan contingencies to support outsourcing of studies, which is typically at higher rates than staff, and addressing CEQA for sphere of influence studies if necessary. The work program includes staffing, organizational improvements, and the work plan studies. For this fiscal year, we identified development and updates to policies and procedures, a comprehensive update of the application forms, and transparency improvements to our website. For the application forms, we've been working with the county surveyor, GIS staff, and the Board of Equalization to identify appropriate mapping criteria for various LAFCo application types, and we'll be updating the application forms. A new policy for implementation of the RFP/RFQ processes was developed and adopted in the first half of the fiscal year. We're also working on updating the out-of-agency service agreement policy and forms, which we'll be bringing to the Policies and Procedures Committee and the Commission this spring. With the assistance of our administrative assistant that we had through a temp agency, we were able to complete the scanning of all Commission resolutions since establishment of LAFCo. All those resolutions are now posted in the library section of our website. We do continue to work on a searchable index to make that more user-friendly, but for now, all those resolutions are available by year on our website. The work plan consists of municipal service review and sphere of influence studies for 7 water and wastewater districts on the coast, and the inclusion of 10 mutual water companies within those studies. So this figure summarizes the progress of the studies, which are being prepared concurrently. The first districts that will be ready for workshop, we anticipate will be the Mendocino County Water Works District 2, which will be a first round MSR and sphere study, the Pacific Reefs Water District, and the Gualala CSD. Staff activities during the first half of the fiscal year have been focused on applications and implementing the work program. A summary of some of the staff activities are included on page 35 of the agenda packet. They're summarized briefly here on this slide. We've been responding to a number of public inquiries and project referrals from the county planning department. We've had meetings with member agencies. We continue to publicize the alternate public member vacancy, and we've been working on financial reports for the fiscal year 22-23 for our audit preparation, which is now underway. And that concludes, we do anticipate increased time spent on processing applications in the remaining half of the fiscal year. Most of those have been delayed due to the tax share process, but we have been working with county staff to move those forward, and we'll also be continuing to work on updating policies. And that concludes presentation. I'm happy to answer questions.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the Commission? Commissioner Ward?
The clerk, you say we haven't found a clerk yet. You're just using a temporary.
Correct. We had a temporary staff person to assist us with administrative tasks in office. However, as is with temp staff, she's no longer available for the time being, but we are managing. We don't see a need for that position at this right now.
What were we paying the temp? What were you paying the temp?
She was $25 an hour.
Because, you know, we're doing bookkeeping at $100 an hour. We're doing other tasks that are pretty expensive. Oh, it's in your budget, but it seems like we could say you could save some money if we had somebody doing those administrative tasks anyway. The resolutions you state are now in the system. Is there any chance of getting all our agendas over the years categorized?
That's a That's something that we can work on, is back posting those past agendas on the website.
I know I've got them all in binders, and I don't know, you guys would think I'm stupid, but I got them all the way back to 2000, but I've looked at certain things that have come up over the years, and you look at how it was approached back then, it makes it a little easier. Or did we discuss this, and when did we discuss it? Because a lot of this is just repeating what we're doing over the years. Some of it, not all of it. So it'd be helpful if we could just go back and say, well, that looks like something we discussed back then. Because there's a lot of executive officer opinions and stuff, whether it be yours or previous EOs that came up with ideas. So I thought it'd be.
I agree. I rely on those myself, that it would be very helpful to have those, and that's something that we can work on.
I even set up a binder on water, because I know back in 15 years ago, it was a big deal, and so I had a lot of water reports that I would look at, and but some of them are outdated, but it is something that is very helpful to go back, because we lose a lot of institutional knowledge because we're not staying on top of it, or people leave, or for God's sake, don't leave, because you've got a lot of institutional knowledge starting over. And then on the work plans, this is just typical of every year that we're not on schedule, but we're looking at quite a big difference in savings, I guess, of our budget. But what can we do to get this thing so that we do spend the money and get the projects done? Because what I'm not seeing, we're not getting there yet. And I know it's a pet peeve of mine. Every damn month I bring it up. I won't bring up the tax sharing, but how can we get, I know people have to respond too, and we're going to talk about the questionnaire coming up. That'll probably be a big help where we can sort of move past some of this stuff, but this is our main thing to do, is MSRs and SOIs.
That is a big part of our work program. We do prioritize applications when they come through. I was the bottleneck in the review process for the studies that have been prepared, so I did hire a contractor to assist us with that piece of it, so things will be moving through more quickly now. She did come on at the beginning of January, and she's been working through the first of the 3 studies, so we anticipate getting those to workshop, at least the first one, hopefully in March, if we can get a response. If not, it will be in April, and I anticipate they will come through fairly quickly once they get started on the scheduling of those workshops.
It's just, what is it, 40% of our budget, and we're not getting it done, to the satisfaction of both of us. I know you're frustrated too, dealing with the districts and the cities. They may not get the information well, and then we're sitting on tax sharing agreements and stuff that frustrate both of us as well, or all of us. So I was just trying to come up with a way, and I think that questionnaire we're going to talk about will be a big help to get maybe through some of these smaller ones. To just say we're doing our thing, but anyway, I want to bring it up again. I know you guys are going to get rid of me one of these days.
Thank you, Commissioner Ward. Commissioner Horsley.
Are you the one that updates the website?
Yes, I am.
Okay. I do the same thing for Inland Water and Power. And just to piggyback on Commissioner Ward's statements, what we do is we have, every year, we archive by year all the agendas and packets and everything, so it doesn't clutter up. You have to click on it to get to the archive section. Just a suggestion. It makes it a lot easier.
Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no additional questions, we're ready to move on to the streamlined review process for work plan studies.
Thank you, and our analyst, Larkin Filer, will be presenting this one.
Oh, Commissioner Gonzalez, did you have it? Oh, you're ready for the next. Okay, let's hear from Larkin first.
Thank you. I'll pull up the presentation.
Larkin.
Good morning, Commissioner. Can you hear me okay?
We can.
Wonderful. And Uma, just let me know when the PowerPoint is up, please.
We are ready. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you. So this item for the proposed streamlined review process for work plan studies starts on page 40 of the packet. And please go to slide 2 for the work plan. So our work plan addresses municipal service reviews and spheres of influence.
Excuse me, Larkin. Can you please speak up so that we can hear you better?
Yes.
Thank you.
Is that better?
Yes, I think so.
Okay. So the municipal service reviews it's a study of local agencies' governance and operations. And the MSRs are conducted for all cities and districts prior to or concurrently with the sphere of influence updates. According to LAFCo law, it is required to update the SOI for agencies every 5 years as needed. Next slide, please. And one of the items for this year was to prepare a streamlined MSR SOI review. And this includes a shift in approach, basically completing a comprehensive study every 10 years, and then preparing a midpoint streamlined review instead of doing the studies every 5 years as we currently are. The benefits of this is that the comprehensive studies will allow us to do dig deeper into the real challenges facing agencies. The comprehensive studies will remain relevant longer, and the streamlined review will help us make the work plan more manageable. There will also be cost savings because it will reduce the overall number of studies, and it will also lengthen the time in between studies. And next slide, please. So the foundation of the streamlined review is a questionnaire, and this questionnaire covers standard performance measures, indicators of the potential for agency growth, service efficiencies, and it is prepared for independent special districts specifically at this time. The approach for the questionnaire being completed is that LAFCo staff will interview the agency instead of doing an analysis as we normally do in the studies. We will discuss changes from prior study determinations, and the responses to the questionnaire will create a record for the midpoint review. And the outcome of the questionnaire, if there are no substantial changes since the last study, this will extend the time frame 5 years for an in-depth study. And it will also serve as the basis for supporting an agency's existing sphere of influence. And next slide, please. So there are 9 questionnaire topics. They are governing body, transparency and accountability, management and staffing, agency performance, shared services and facilities, government structure, finances, growth and development, and municipal services and facilities. And next slide, please. So this slide shows the first portion of the questionnaire on governing body, which starts on page 42 of the packet. And you can see it just goes through a number of items. There's a checkbox if the particular item is true. And then there's a place for staff to include notes. And then next slide, please.
Is this completed by LAFCo staff or by the agency?
That is correct. So the questionnaire, basically LAFCo staff will sit down with agency staff or a representative and we'll fill out this questionnaire together.
Thank you.
So we'll talk through each of the items, but LAFCO staff will actually be preparing the questionnaire.
Thank you.
Thank you. And just I have additional questions from commissioners, so we'll just wait until the presentation is done, and then we'll have all the questions. Please continue with your presentation.
Okay, thank you. Are we on the general process slide right now?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. So the general process for doing these streamlined reviews, step one, LAFCo staff will confer with an agency representative to prepare a response to the streamlined review questionnaire. Step two, the commission will consider as a matter for discussion and possible action and approve by resolution, confirming the existing sphere for the agency. And step three, LAFCo staff will schedule the next MSR SOI review in 5 years or sooner. And next slide, please. So in November of last year, the Policies and Procedures Committee did review the questionnaire and provided support for moving it forward to the Commission for review. And some of the discussion at the committee level was that the questionnaire will provide a good check-in opportunity to help keep agencies on track in the years in between the bigger studies. The questionnaire will offer helpful guidance to agencies on the MSR SOI expectations and reduce apprehension about the process. And the questionnaire is something that we can post on the LAFCo website for transparency and for agency self-assessment purposes. And last slide. So staff is requesting the commission to provide input on the general process and questionnaire and bless both in concept. And I just want to note that it is anticipated that in applying this new process and questionnaire, there will continue to be refinements and improvements made as lessons are learned. And that concludes my presentation. I'm happy to answer questions.
Thank you. I'm going to start with Horsley, Ward, Gonzalez, and then we'll ask for more.
Thank you. On page of the staff agenda, page 41, under Policies and Procedures Committee Support, on number 1, it says LAFCo could request the agency provide the prior 3 years of audits. Is that financial audits?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay, because there's a lot of different audits. So if we could add the word financial, that'd be great. Or is this just for the agenda item?
We can add that for any additional information that goes out. Thank you for that clarification.
Thank you. Number 5, I have real concerns about that statement. We could review other things, including housing and homelessness, disaster planning. I've seen some of these other LAFCOs and what they're requiring now, and I'm very concerned about it because I really think it's taking away from the cities and districts what they have purview over. So I just want to caution that I think that's going down a slippery slope if we go too far with something like that, though I know it isn't really included at this time. On page 42, you said this is the special district ones, but you're going to be putting one together for cities, I take it?
Yes, that would be the idea.
Okay. I just want to say I think this is a fantastic idea, and you've done a great job. Just have a couple questions. So, under the governing body, you have the district is governed by a 5-member board of directors. I'm assuming that changes depending on the special district?
Generally speaking, that is what applies to independent special districts, is a 5-member board. It can happen that there's not a full board in place for different agencies. If there are any differences, that's something that we would just address in the note portion, saying, this doesn't apply, and they meet anything that might deviate from that general standard.
Okay. And then the last question is transparency and accountability. My question is, I understand the questions. Is LAFCo just asking these questions because we're required to, or are we the watchdogs to make sure that all this happens at each district or city?
That's a very good question. So these are the types of things that we explore during the when we're doing an in-depth study for an agency. So we are, like you said, more of a watchdog. We're not an enforcement agency, but these are the types of things that we look at in our studies and are also helpful when an agency has plans to grow or make changes to their services. So, you know, by us keeping track on how an agency is performing overall, this helps guide us in making those more long-term decisions for an agency. So you're correct. We're not specifically making sure, you know, following up and making sure all of these things are happening, but this allows us to do a checkpoint review to make sure that at minimum the agencies are aware of the requirements, and also doing, you know, a little education to help bring them up to speed if they're not. So.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Ward.
Yes, thank you. First of all, is this legal? I mean, we're supposed to do every 5 years. If we go to a 10-year program, any problems with that?
So, I mean, maybe council can jump in, but I will say that other LAFCos are already performing this type of function. They, each LAFCO does things a little differently, but this is in line with what some LAFCos have already started years ago. So I don't know if
So we're all
council
doing
has
it's not against the
anything
law.
further to add.
I do. I will add that it's not omitting a review in that 5th year. It's just a more streamlined review. And I think with that very in-depth review every 10 years, you know, you're working with enough information at that 5-year mark. And I think that's also something that's subject to some discretion by the staff at that time, looking at the information that they have and going through that streamlined process.
Well, other LAFCOs are doing a less MSR to get through the 5 years, just to get it through. And we've always taken the opposite approach of doing a more extensive review. But a lot of LAFCOs are keeping up with their 5-year review. At least when I went to Cal LAFCOs before, a lot of them were up to date. But their MSRs were 40 pages, not 400. So I don't know. It's just something I thought I'd bring up. The other question is, I'd like to have a list of where we're at with our MSRs. How many are more than 5 years old? Some are maybe only 3 years old. We just completed a couple. See where we're at and which ones we want to actually do the 10-year deal. So that would be helpful in the future. Maybe have a list of where we're at. I know you've done it in the past. Provided us when the dates are due for their 5-year review. The other one was, how different is this questionnaire from the one we've been using? And if they're not going to fill out if they're not filling out the last questionnaire because there's nobody around to do it, how beneficial is this for the new one?
That's a good question. So we do have a request for information that goes out when we prepare the in-depth study, and that is the one that we have difficulty getting a response on. This is more streamlined than that one. And also, you know, we will actually be sitting down with the agency. So, you know, I think we will have, generally speaking, when you get these types of requests, it can be a little overwhelming. And so I think sitting down with LAFCo staff and us walking them through the document and making sure they understand each question will be helpful in getting involvement from the agency. But we will find out in the process.
Is that your take from talking to staffs now from districts? Because some of these districts don't even have staff. So how do you deal with that?
So in those situations when there's not staff, we usually meet with a board member, whoever, you know, whether it's the chair or whatever person is volunteered for that position. So, and we have, you know, definitely gotten feedback not necessarily even unique to Mendocino County, but the LAFCo MSR SOI process is there's a lot of fear from agencies around that process and just trying to understand it. And, you know, again, because there is concern that we are an enforcement agency. And so I think this will provide the opportunity to build relationships and also do some education that will really benefit the agencies. So
I know that's been brought up in the past where after they've got through their MSR, they go, wow, this is really a nice tool to have. But getting to that point is always the difficult part. I could think of a couple cemetery districts, you won't even have a board member, let alone staff. So I just wanted to know how we would be able to approach those, get them sort of in line with the 5-year or 10-year review. So that's something that I like to see. The other thing I think is really important is the audits, their financial audits having 3 years, because we have no idea if they're even able to perform the duties that they have if they don't even have an audit. So, and then we have to look at consolidation or dissolutions or whatever. But we're not getting that feedback, and I'm concerned about some of these districts, especially the last several years with lack of funds. I think we just need to see the overall picture and see which direction we want to go. And lastly,
that is really good feedback.
Lastly, I know we've done some MSRs. I can think of Irish Beach as one of them. Several years ago, we did their MSR, and there were some issues with it, and I can't tell you what they are at the top of my head. You could look it up, but we were going to come back in a year and see that they were going to do those things. And we don't go back. So I think it would be important to have something in there that when we do these streamlined deals, if there's some issues that still haven't been resolved, have it brought forward again for us to review again and not let it go to the wayside. Because this one in Irish Beach was pretty important, and I don't remember what it was again, but we were supposed to come back and look at it. It might have been in the determination, but it's something I think we need to be involved in after this, so we don't let them out of sight, out of mind, and we forget about it. If we could have something there as well in the questionnaire to go back and look, because 10 years is a long time too. A lot of things do change. These MSRs, as far as I'm concerned, are outdated the year after they're done in some of the cities and stuff. 10 years, I do have an issue with it, but if we're continually looking back at them.
Thank you. And now I'm going to go to Commissioner Ward, and I do see Commissioner Cole with their hand up. So, and then we'll come back into the room with Commissioner Roden and Commissioner Christian. Thank you.
Yeah, she said Commissioner Ward, but
sorry, Gonzalez.
Yeah,
I have another question.
I know. Yeah, so I thought you had another one. So I'm glad that Jerry has the institutional knowledge, because I think that brought up. I was thinking of some sort of last check the box. Should we? Do we need to come back, and review something, some sort of catch-all? Just because I was thinking, and then also when it came to the website, maybe a prompt with as some organizations go overboard on social media and website, and some are lucky if they have a old website. But I know if I were going to review this information ahead of time, it'd be nice if I could look at their website. A lot of times I look at people's websites first. And I guess my question, mechanics-wise, is this something that we will have on our website? So if I'm a cemetery district wondering, what am I looking at when they come do one of these, can I pop this up and then start getting my homework done in advance, since I know I might be coming up, and do that? So I thought if that's how it goes, then having those prompts on there would be helpful, so they can at least start filling in, here's our website, yeah, let's go find the audits, let's do this. So, and that's what I had.
Thank you. Commissioner Cole?
Yes, I was, continuing on with that discussion. regarding timeline, and I think Commissioner Ward is correct, some of these may not come back. Do we have a timeline for returning these or setting up these meetings? Because I know some of the special districts, just making that meeting, setting that up might take a month or two, and perhaps we could consider having a timeline to respond. Um, and on the another point I wanted to make when I read this, I would have loved to have this streamlined type of process outline that I just received this week for everyone on my board to see earlier. So I'm in really strong favor that this is the way to go. And maybe, yes, I agree with Commissioner Gonzalez. If this is available 24/7 on a website, that we can then share it with everyone coming on board, because we have commissioners that might have started, board members that might have started this process and then they roll off the board in 4 years. They don't see the final results of that. So yeah, timeline is my question. What is what can we set a timeline for response?
Thank you.
So if I'm...
Please go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah. Please go ahead.
If I'm understanding your question correctly, so the way that the work plan works is that we budget a certain amount in the fiscal year. And so basically we spend that year prioritizing the agencies and doing outreach. And so we definitely have a significant length of time to be able to coordinate with the agencies. And often when we send, in the current process where we do the in-depth study, when we send out the request for information, we give them a month or two to respond anyways. So, we definitely will make it a priority to give it as much time in advance as possible to make sure that the meeting that we set up is, everyone who wants to be there is there, and it's a really productive time that we spend with the agency. So,
okay, thank you.
I don't know if that's helpful.
Yes, it was. It was. Yes, thanks.
Thank you. Commissioner Roden.
Okay, I just have three things. One is I wanted to follow up with Commissioner Horsley's slippery slope comment about, that was number 5, I think, on the that list. And I was thinking about it since you brought that up, and I wanted to hear more about your concerns, but I was thinking that it could be good in that, let's say we're talking about a fire district. We're looking at an MSR for a fire district, and maybe we, if they want to expand their sphere of influence, for example, we might want to know how prepared they are for disasters, for example, even though it isn't specifically one of the MSR determinations. So I could imagine things that we would want to take into consideration if a district or even a city is wanting to expand or whatever, that those might be important considerations. So I don't know, I thought it'd be interesting to discuss it a little further. I'm interested in what your concerns are.
Yes, thank you. I've read some other counties' applications. And I guess what concerned me, I think it was Monterey, they were requiring certain things when it came to housing. And I think that they added that on, and there were some other things they added on, homelessness, housing. I guess I was focusing more on that than I was on the response and emergency. Because I can see how that would be helpful, yes. But I just felt like there's so many regulations already for LAFCo to get involved with that. I just didn't think it was something that I would vote for, but.
Right. Well, maybe we deal with that on an ad hoc basis, as it comes up, and we decide whether any of those things would be relevant to a particular agency that we're reviewing. Because I can see the pros and cons. We don't want to get too meddlesome. I guess I get that, yeah. And then also I wanted just clarify that, and make sure, confirm my understanding that the streamlined process would apply to any kind of agency, a city or a district. It would, even though right now we're starting with districts, that this will apply to cities also. And why is our questionnaire right now focused on districts? It's because we only have 4 cities, and so we're starting with districts, and then so anyway, I wanted to hear about that.
That is a really good question, and certainly if Uma, if you have anything to add, chime in. But yes, at this time we've started with the independent special districts because in general they are the agencies that we can, when we do the studies, we find that they have less changes since the last study. So we thought that that would be a good place to start. You know, it is a new process for us, and so we kind of want to see how it works with the special districts first, and then also I do think the intent is to extend that to cities, but we will need to do some fine tuning just because some of the things that apply to districts are different for cities. So I think the intent is to provide a questionnaire specific to cities also, but I think this was the priority, at least at this time. But Uma, please add if you have anything else.
Well, thank you, Larkin. I just wanted to add that this process is intended to go hand in hand with the development of comprehensive reviews that we have been doing. For example, the City of Ukiah, we really went through a comprehensive process and tied that in with our general plan update. So the intent is that when we do these comprehensive updates, that it may not need to do another comprehensive update in 5 years. So we would apply the streamlined review process instead and ask for the commission to adopt a resolution that the existing sphere is appropriate, and then we can move on and schedule it out for an additional 5 years. And that way we can focus in on the agencies, whether it be special districts or cities, that really need that more analysis for things like consolidations and dissolutions in the future, where that so focus the funds and the analysis where it's more useful rather than just to check that box.
So are you saying that that every 5 years, well, that after a comprehensive review, 5 years after a comprehensive review of a city, we would apply the streamlined process to a city, but we just haven't developed the specific, the fine tuning of this one for cities? Is that what you're saying?
That is the intent of this process. Of course, if things come up where there are substantial changes in the plans of for example, the city or one of the special districts, or there have been significant changes since the last comprehensive update, then the streamlined process would likely not be applied.
Right, okay. And then before, I don't remember I don't know where we are with all the 4 cities. I mean, I know we just finished Ukiah, but before we get to I don't know, just be nice to have an update of where we are with cities and be able to have something ready, a questionnaire ready before we get to our next city. But I'm sure you are already thinking that.
Thank you. And also just to note that, and this gets to Commissioner Ward's comment also, that when we get into the budget development process, we will take a look at the rolling work plan, which lines out, gives the dates of the most current MSR and sphere update for all of the agencies and how that looks in the long-term schedule.
Okay. And then just one last thing. We were talking about enforcement, or, maybe it was your question, and it made me curious, what has happened in other counties when LAFCos have found a district? It would probably be a district that was, failing to live up to its, obligations of transparency and governance and keeping books. And what's happened since we aren't enforcing? What do those LAFCos do to try to rectify the situation? I mean, do they get activists like that and try to dissolve them? Do they report the situation to the state? I'm just sort of curious of what's happened.
Larkin, do you want to respond, or would you like me to? Or perhaps Marcia, I see she's ready to talk.
I'm happy to respond. I mean, I would just say any and all of those things. I think it's really dependent on the agency and what resources are available. And yeah, I mean, I think the goal would be to, if there's a struggling agency, to help them get back on track. But as you said, if that really just is not feasible, then, you know, there are the avenues of dissolution and consolidation and things like that that are available. So, but I don't think that's the first step. I think the first step is to try and help the agency get back on track. So.
Okay, thanks. I'm done with my questions.
Sorry, Marcia, did you want to add anything to that, or?
No, I think Larkin really covered it. It really depends on the situation. And, you know, they're generally speaking, if an agency has gotten off track, it wasn't intentional. So sometimes they just need some guidance, and it is up to the individual LAFCo and its executive officer whether or not they want to lend that support. But it does make sense to, you know, see if you can assist the agency get back on track. If there are financial irregularities, you know, there's certainly county offices that can assist, and state. It's unlikely the state would get involved, but if it's significant enough, they could. But I think Larkin covered it pretty well.
Thank you. Commissioner Ward, you had a question on this?
Yeah,
topic?
I did this
Okay.
one. We've talked about this 1,000 times in the last 20 years. It's how do we enforce these things? We've brought up, and I know other commissioners brought up, we need to send a letter to the board to let them know that they're not getting their audits done, or they don't have their website up completed, or whatever. We send the letter out, but I don't recall ever seeing letters signed by the chair saying that we've found these things, and then we need to keep following up with it. I know some of these boards are turnover. There's a lot of turnover on the boards, but we need to be consistent and tell them that we're certainly need this information, because I'm concerned about it again today as it was 10 years ago, but especially the audits. I mean, we get these audits that are 3 years old or whatever, and they don't bring them to us. We got to consistently, I think we need a checklist of things that we need from them and consistently be on top of it. So that was what I was going to do. We need a minimum anyway. They need audits. They need a website. They need a full board when they can get a full board. Those kind of things, and then follow up with letters. We can't. I mean, we could dissolve them, but I'm not there yet either. I'm just saying we need to do something to get these people off because I'm really concerned about it. We keep talking about it, but we don't do anything about it. That's my problem. And I know a lot of you haven't been on the commission for a long time, but we've talked about this many times, and we're just still not getting it done. I don't know what the answer is.
I want to go to E.L. Hinman and then Commissioner Christian, please.
Thank you. I hear your points, Commissioner Ward, and I think that there was some, when EOs were shifting fairly frequently, I think a lot of those things, those requests for follow-up after MSRs kind of fell through the cracks. One of the things that we're doing is going back through those studies and trying to identify those notes that were in the files that said, we want to see this district's financials in 1 year. So that's something that we're working on. I think to get to these issues, that it's really important that the commission take a hard look at the determinations that are made with each of these studies as they come forward, because that's where it's important that the commission make determinations that reflect the conditions of that agency, because it will impact how what LAFCo can do in the future when it comes to consolidations or dissolutions. When those LAFCo has the ability to initiate certain actions or certain reorganizations, But in order to do those determinations have to be made in an MSR to support that effort. So that's something to keep in mind as we go through these MSRs and these sphere studies in the future. I just wanted to add that. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Christian.
So, you know, taking the perspective of a special district, these things or these requests for information can be seen as pretty burdensome. I take, or echoing Commissioner Horsley's concern, I like the whole idea of streamlining the process, finding ways that after you've done your interview or whatever, you have some checklist that you can summarize what's going on next time around. Process. I would think that the, you know, good way of proceeding is not just sending a letter to like our special district. It's better to make a phone call and try to establish a personal relationship, and then send that. The other thought I had is we're a complicated special district. We have fire. We're trying to get water and sewer. We've got an airport. But a cemetery district is simple, so I would think that the questionnaire might be tailored for, you know, simpler special districts versus complicated. Those are my comments. The only, I guess, question for council, is there an overarching agency, state agency that would bless this process, or is it, how does this work?
So is the question that, is there an agency that blesses what process?
This abbreviated process, and whether we go back every 5 years or 10 years, how this is done?
No, and I think it might have been Larkin who mentioned that there are other LAFCos that are, you know, kind of finding a process that meets their interpretation of the requirements of Cortese-Knox-Hertzberg. And I think in this situation, I guess the direct answer to your question is no, there is not an agency that oversees the LAFCos and determines whether or not they're interpreting a statute correctly.
Interesting. Any case law, any litigation around this stuff, or?
There isn't case law directly on this point. You know, whether or not a streamlined review in the every other review period is appropriate. Again, I think that's going to depend, you know, that those are very fact specific determinations. You know, if there was a streamlined review that, for example, you know, was so streamlined that that it, you know, was determined to be, you know, not meeting the requirements of the statute, I suppose that's possible. I do think that in this case, the intention is to have a very detailed, in-depth review every 10 years. And that streamlined review, if there were changed circumstances, it would, you know, certainly be within the discretion of the commission at that time, and the executive officer could bring this to you, you know, that there were changed circumstances. So maybe an abbreviated or streamlined review isn't appropriate in that particular case. So I think this is really, you know, finding the best way to meet the requirements of the statute as we interpret it.
So, I mean, you know, question comes to mind is, do we really need to ask about housing? And do we really need to ask about, I mean, you know, some of these questions seem somewhat burdensome. They fall in our mandate. So anyway, questions that I have. Thank you.
Yeah, I think that, thank you for that question, and thank you, Commissioner Horsley, for bringing that up. I think that that's one thing that we could probably provide a little direction on today for the EO. The questionnaire, as it was presented in the agenda, to me seems more like a how to have a district. These are the things that you should be doing, and it's really a good opportunity for district, either employees or board members to check off, yes, we are doing things, and if they see that they're not doing something, an opportunity to improve, and a way for LAFCo to keep track of who's doing what and how things are improving. I did want to ask before we move on, if there are commissioners that are in support, and I wanted to go back to the actual number, and that was from the Policies and Procedures Committee, and the Commission could review other things beyond the standard 6 MSR determinations, and some other LAFCos are opting to review disaster planning and preparedness, housing, and homelessness. And I think that what I'm hearing is that we're not really in support of that at this time, but I want to just check in to see if it's something that, again, I think as Commissioner Roden mentioned, that disaster planning and preparedness might make sense for some fire departments, but not for a cemetery district. Same with housing and homelessness, not related to, well, it is related to the water district, but homelessness is not. So just some feedback from the commissioners for that, I think for the executive office would be helpful. Commissioner Gonzalez.
I think there needs to be like an asterisk on this for some, because I'll tell you what, water districts, I know cities, counties have to have disaster mitigation. That's just, I think it's statutory, depending on what it is. So for some of them, it should either be on the shelf or going to be reviewed at a certain date. So having it on here is probably okay. I just think that asterisk says, you know, do you have one? Are you planning on getting one, as opposed to you should get one? Because I don't think, in a perfect world, I've seen some special districts that go over and above and have that sort of thing. Maybe they just copied somebody else's form. Maybe they actually do have something. But if they do, it'd be nice to know. Because I'll tell you, I think this is also an information sharing opportunity. If hypothetically Special District X has a model plan, and maybe it's boilermaker kind of thing, but that you can share with another district, then you can kind of marry them and say, hey, go see them, got a great plan, and it's not that extensive as opposed to the cities or fire departments or water districts that have to have something a little more beefier. So that's my take. But I like the idea of the streamlined process, because I think for the special districts, probably more so them than the cities, because the cities, if we're going to annex or we're going to do other stuff, we know we're going to be under scrutiny. But I think that for the special districts, to have something and kind of start getting their homework together. I mean, it might scare some of them off, might look daunting, but if nothing else, they can start at least checking the box and say, well, get out the cardboard boxes, get out that stuff that we've got sitting out. And if I don't get elected, somebody else gets that problem. That's all I have.
Thank you. Commissioner Ward and then Commissioner Cole.
I agree with what Jerry just said. The minimum, I just want to keep it to a minimum. You know, if there's certain things that the city needs to do versus the district, then so be it. But I don't need to take on any more work, have the EO take on any more work than get these MSRs done.
Thank you. Commissioner Cole.
Yes, we're talking about how some of these questions don't apply to all districts, but just coming from my view of looking at it as from a cemetery district, it still is helpful for me to see all of the different options. Anyway, I can put not applicable, or, you know, a lot of it is not applicable, but it is helpful to even consider all the options that all the other districts are doing. I think we feel like we're an island, and by seeing all the questions, it's actually helpful just in itself to see all the options. And yes, sometimes we will have something to do with homelessness or emergency response, even though we're a cemetery. So it's kind of just a comment that I think, even though some of these questions are not applicable to our district, it is still helpful. And I think a lot of districts will find it so.
Thank you. Commissioner Horsley, and then EO Hinman, I see your pen up. Was there something you? Okay.
You want to go ahead?
Sure. I wanted to provide a little background on that item number 5. So some of those things came forward during the LAFCo conference. Butte LAFCo, for one, is incorporating more discussion on the hazard mitigation plans and doing determinations for the agencies that it's applicable to. And primarily this came out of the campfire response, and that was a coordinated response. And the planning for the rebuilding of Paradise has also been a collaborative response that included LAFCo. And so that was and I know that Marcia works a lot with their executive officer and commission, so if she has something to add, please jump in. But there was a lot of talk at the conference about whether or not what LAFCo's role is in that disaster response planning. And so some of those LAFCos have taken on that role taken that next step of including that discussion in their MSRs where it's applicable. Not that it's necessarily applied to all. The other piece of that was, and I may have lost that train of thought, the housing and the homelessness. For example, Sacramento LAFCo is looking at the homelessness because it has become a service of the Sacramento Metro Fire. The county put that service under Sac Metro Fire, and so that becomes part of their analysis in their municipal service review. So I just wanted to give a little bit of background. It wasn't kind of pulled out of the air, but there are LAFCOs that are addressing that in various ways, and housing is such a big issue. And LAFCO is really kind of starting to work more closely with the land use planning agencies, and so that has been incorporated into some of the LAFCO's processes.
Thank you. That's helpful information. Commissioner Horsley?
Yes, thank you. That was helpful. I guess I just want to express my concerns in maybe more detail. I don't have a problem with having the preparedness. I just don't want, like, maybe this little small water district that doesn't even have a full-time employee, just put on them that you have to have a plan now, which is 50 pages because we've got it in the LAFCO. And I think, I don't think you would want to do that either. I'm just concerned in the future that somebody's going to read this. We have to be very careful and say, oh yeah, now we're going to require it of every little tiny agency, and they have no funds or anything to be able to do that. Because there are those requirements, as was mentioned, that cities and so forth have those plans. And I'm just concerned about again, requirements for housing and homelessness. There's just so many requirements already, statewide, some federal, but a lot of state, for those agencies that have to deal with that. I understand what you're saying about, like, the fire agency, they had to be concerned about homelessness, but it just seems to me that already the Sacramento City has those rules and regulations in place, and how LAFCO, I just don't want to add another layer upon layer upon layer. That's my concern, and that they don't look at LAFCO again as they're requiring all this stuff from us and adding more burden. I think now we're in a really good place, very much due to you, Uma, but we're in a really good place, and this 5-year review process to me is another way to reach out and say, we're trying not to make it too onerous on you by doing this, that helps. So those are just my comments.
With that, do you have enough, Commissioner Ward, did you have another question?
You may have a response to that. Give your pen up.
That I agree. I hear you, and I agree, and that it's at this point, anything above the standard determinations that are required by the CKH are up to local policy or the Commission's direction. So that is something that could be addressed in the future if the Commission desires to do that, but it's certainly not something that staff is wanting to put forward at this time. The only other thing I wanted to just say was that we do routinely work with the small districts who reach out to us requesting help with some of these items. And the items in this checklist are really based on the information that we need in order to make determinations, the required determinations in the MSR and the sphere update. That's where a lot of these questions came from. And also the performance measures that are pretty typically used in supporting those determinations. So that was the basis of a lot of these questions. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Ward.
Yes, I'd like to wrap this up, hopefully. This 10-year thing, I do have problems with it. I understand the streamlining and all, but I'd like to see another checklist that they have this, and this, audits and website and boards and everything else, because 10 years is a long time. If they don't have it now, or what 10 years from now we're going to look at it again. So I'd like to see, well, it's 5 years now, but they're looking at a review every 10 years.
So just for clarification, instead of having a full review, you would have your review, this would be your 5-year review, and then you would have a full review in 10 years.
Okay, so you're doing this for 5 years.
So this is like a streamlined halfway mark, and then you would have the full review in 10 years.
Okay, but even then, I know we have districts out there that haven't even got a website yet, or they don't have their audits up to date. And we just let it slide until the next 5 years. And I like to see something, we look at this every year. I know our work plan, we've got certain MSRs, but we need to come back on that work plan and finish up ones that we didn't finish up. And the last thing is, you mentioned determinations. We need a list of like you're doing the water districts now. What were the determinations before? Maybe we put that in our agenda summary. So we see what the determinations are now and what we're trying to get to when you're completed the MSR SOIs. And so we're well aware of the information that we're going to be doing this MSR. So, but I just think we need a certain amount of this information from these districts. The cities are okay, but some of these districts don't have even the basics that we need. And it just sort of goes on and on and on, and we need to keep following up. Again, how do we get them to do it? I don't know, but it's something we need to be, because these people that are in the water districts or cemetery, they need to know when their meetings are. How often do they meet? Who are their board of directors? How do they contact their board of directors? Those kinds of things I think are really important. And there's still some out there that are not up to date. I'm done.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I guess for our team here, do you have enough information to move forward at this point, or do you need any further direction?
Just so for clarity, so we are receiving the Commission's blessing to implement this process, and then with the understanding that we will refine and continue to work on it and as we move forward.
Yes, yeah, that's where we're headed. We
Thank
anticipate there may need to be changes, but agree that this might help us get the work done.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. So we're going to move on to item 7C, the proposed logo for Mendocino LAFCo. And I believe it was included in your packet. And let me find the page 49 in your packet. And I would open it up to questions or comments. Oh, you have a presentation. Thank you.
I do have a brief presentation, and I promise to keep it brief. So for a little background, back in 2017, the Little Hoover Commission released a report on improving oversight and transparency for special districts. So in researching and developing the report, the Little Hoover Commission called on LAFCo as well as individual LAFCos to provide substantial testimony. And in response to that report, LAFCo prioritized rebranding for high visibility recognition to further their advocacy and outreach goals, because a common thread through that report is that no one knew who LAFCo was. Since then, LAFCo conferences and staff workshops carry a common theme to all the LAFCos, which is increase your visibility and recognition. This gets to what I'm sure most of us have heard is what is LAFCo, which is a hard one to answer. but it turns out that is a very common comment and question throughout the state. So with the assumption that low visibility contributes to challenges with public engagement, a logo is intended to build identity. Let's see, I think I got off. So this is we currently do not have a logo. This is our current letterhead that we have used for many years now. With the assumption that low visibility contributes to challenges with public engagement, a logo is intended to build identity, presence and recognition, and support outreach and public engagement. The function of a logo is to promote awareness, to inform the viewer, be unique and recognizable, and provide a distinct, cohesive look that references goals and missions. So with that in mind, we worked with a freelance graphic designer to develop a draft logo for Mendocino LAFCo. The staff compiled the elements that are representative of our region and LAFCo's goals and missions to preserve agriculture and open space, and provided that to him to work with. The Policies and Procedures Committee reviewed and provided feedback on the design elements and a layout of the logo, which was used to work with the graphic designer to develop several options for consideration. And I want to thank Commissioner Roden for her assistance. We further refined the logo to present 3 options for commission consideration and feedback. So option 1 is the preferred option and contains elements of the coast, inland areas, the redwoods, and agriculture. Option 2 is slightly different in that the delineators, which are between the words here, were added. And then option 3 is a different color scheme and focuses more on agriculture than the redwoods. So costs for development of the logo have been kept to a minimum by using a freelance graphic designer who has developed these drafts for $105. If the commission approved the logo, they would further develop letterhead and a branding guide, which guides the color and fonts for use for an additional $35. So staff is requesting that the commission consider the draft logos, and potential actions for the commission today include adopting the proposed logo, adopting the logo with modifications, or providing additional direction to Policies and Procedures Committee or staff.
Commissioner Christian, Ward, and then Horsley, please.
So it happens that I spent quite a few years working for a design company in San Francisco. One of the tasks that we had was to try to understand what logos people. And I like the proposed logo that the one that's recommended. However, I'm not sure that it communicates really what LAFCO is all about. So it does communicate Mendocino County very nicely. So I sat there pondering that whole issue. How can we better communicate what LAFCO is about? And I noticed that the Cal LAFCO on their logo has a little, if I can get to it. Oh yeah, it says, below the logo, it says supporting sustainable community growth, which is kind of say what LAFCO is all about. And I would suggest that maybe incorporating something like that in the logo would be beneficial. And the other comment I have is that, you know, we talk about LAFCO, and this doesn't say LAFCO, it says local agency mission. I think putting LAFCO in brackets or finding a way of, I like local agency formation commission because it tells you what it is, but including the LAFCO in there in brackets or something, I think would help enhance community. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you. That's very good feedback. It seems like the tagline or the sentence supporting sustainable community growth is something that could potentially be added to the letterhead. And I also really like the idea of including perhaps Mendocino LAFCO, because as somebody that speaks in acronyms regularly, people often are disappointed in that, but that is also how we speak. So having it identified, I think, in the logo would be helpful. Commissioner Ward and then Commissioner Horsley.
Yeah, first of all, I want to say that I am in favor of a logo, but I didn't understand how that particular logo could communicate our goals and missions. And I agree with you. It doesn't really say anything. I mean, I like your ideas, though, about maybe something in there and what you just said, Mo, too. That's a good idea. So I was a little confused of how that particular logo could communicate what we really do. It doesn't, but it's a nice logo, though, and I think we could probably make it a little bit better. So it's only going to cost about $140 to do this whole thing. Is that all?
We used to charge millions of dollars for big corporations to do this kind of work. This is cheap.
So $140 is max.
That's for the freelance and then freelance graphic designer and then some staff time as well.
Okay. That's all I had.
Thank you. Commissioner Horsley, Commissioner Gonzalez?
I think that you can put a lot of things, as you mentioned, on the letterhead that adds to it, because when I see a logo on something, I don't read everything that's on the little logo because it's usually so small. But on a letterhead, you can add things like contributing to sustainable growth, blah, blah, blah. I think that's really important. And some of the other things that you mentioned about having it say LAFCO, so you can see what the acronym is. I gotta say, I thought the Orange County one was really unique and clever. Of course, it doesn't signify what they do with LAFCo at all, but I just thought it was clever. But I think, yes, it's a very pretty logo, and it shows all the different parts of Mendocino County in it, but those are my comments.
Commissioner Gonzalez?
So I guess we could add the initials, highlight the L, A, in LAFCO there. Keep it. I like number 1. I think it's pretty, but I think instead of what you talked about, that a lot of agencies or cities or whatever have a motto or that goes with them, or mission statement that would go with the logo. So again, with the whatever we do, stationery or whatever, it could be Mendo, LAFCO, et cetera. Then it says, preserving blah, 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 whatever our motto is.
But highlighting those letters makes sense. That's a good idea.
I mean, you could, I don't know, if, I'm not a graphics design person, but I thought if that's a way of getting across, because, yeah, I mean, people know us as LAFCO. I know a lot of people, and then some people ask me, what's LAFCO? They know it's out there, but they don't know what LAFCO is. I find myself answering, what is LAFCO? Yeah.
No.
So.
We're a very serious bunch. Commissioner Roden?
I thought that Commissioner Christian's comments were great, and I think we should add just 4 words: supporting sustainable community growth. And I would trust the graphic designer to figure out a way to do that, and also a way to put the acronym in there somehow. I think that, is it he or she? I'm not sure. He? Yeah. So anyway, I just want to concur that those are great comments, and that I think you found a great graphic designer. He did a great job, and it was really fun to be. I really enjoyed working on this and narrowing it down. I think we have gotten to a really good logo. Yeah.
Great, thank you. Well, thank you everybody for your comments, and thank you, Uma, for your work. I think it is important, and great job, everybody. Commissioner Roden as well.
Do we need a motion to go forward or anything?
I don't know that we need do you need a formal motion, or do you have enough direction?
Money.
I think we, with the direction we have, then we can go back to the graphic designer and come up with a couple more options, and then we'll bring that back to the commission for final approval.
Sounds great.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, with that, I do believe that we can move on to item 8A, the work planning current and future proposals, written report.
Thank you. At this time, all applications on file are pending tax share agreements. We have been working on the Anderson Valley CSD application to annex their sphere of influence. just to, because there were some incomplete items, so we've been refining that and going back through what the CSD has provided and refining that. The same with the ELK CSD application to activate latent powers. We are also coordinating with the Anderson Valley CSD on their future application for activation of latent powers for water and sewer. Primarily, over the last month, we've been working with the CEQA consultant to ensure that the LAFCo actions are analyzed in that document so we can rely on that for the LAFCo application. The work plan we did talk a little bit about in item 7A already. As I noted, we have contracted with a consultant to support our staff in so that we can speed up our process and start bringing these to workshop with the commission. So we do anticipate starting to schedule workshops on the studies. We hope in March, but if not March, then April for sure. And that's all I have to report, unless there are questions.
Commissioner Ward?
Do we know yet from the smaller districts that you're doing through the work plan that there'll be some consolidation there?
We have actually, I did meet with the Gualala CSD and the Mendocino County Waterworks District 2. They both expressed interest in having that analyzed in their MSRs. So that will be part of those documents. And yes, we are. So short answer, yes, we are considering that in the MSRs.
So it could happen.
So if we make determinations, if the commission adopts determinations that that is something to be considered in the future, then it is possible that the commission could initiate something like that in the future. But again, those two agencies in particular have expressed interest in that, so this would support their application should they make one.
It's probably premature, but how would that process go about? You say something in the future, but what's the first steps to consolidate?
Well, ideally, we would receive resolutions of application from both agencies. That streamlines the process, and under the CKH, there is a protest process, whether it is initiated by the agencies or by LAFCo. So it does have to go through those certain steps.
So, and then it's an application where those two agencies have to pay the cost of that application?
If it is an application from the districts, yes.
So I'm talking about something that we feel that's in the best interest of consolidating. How would that go about? That we implement it?
If the commission initiates a consolidation or dissolution, I believe the costs are borne by LAFCo.
Right. So if neither one of them has the money, nothing gets done. That's all I have.
Commissioner Horsley.
Just an interesting note on that. I understand that in March, the consolidation of the water districts, there's going to be some sort of major discussion and decision. So hopefully that happens.
But who pays for it?
Well, they're hoping the state does.
Yeah, that's a state.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you for the update. And 8B would be correspondence?
None.
And 8C, the LAFCo Business and Legislative Report was included with our agenda, so are there any commissioners that have questions? Seeing none. Did you want to highlight anything, Uma? Or?
No, I don't think it's necessary. Yeah.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
Thank you. And then do you have an executive officer's verbal report today?
I just have a couple of items. Again, these have been mentioned already, but the alternate public member vacancy is still ongoing. The current application deadline has been extended to March 1st. The notice of vacancy has been distributed to all of the member agencies and interested parties, as well as the commissioners, so please do share that freely. All the information is available on our website, so you can point folks there. I think there is a headline on the front, on the homepage. And then I want to thank Treasurer Ward for his assistance in reviewing the financial reports. that we put together, and that has been sent off to our CPA for preparing the fiscal year 2022-23 audit.
I have a question on that.
Please go ahead, Commissioner Ward.
How are you treating the amount of money that's in the treasury for the county, even though we don't have the dollar amount? I mean, we're just estimating it?
So we did finally receive final munis reports for June of 2023.
Oh, is that the last one you sent to me? I
it
thought that
is.
was prior to June, okay. So you do have the numbers.
So we were able to provide all of the munis reports to our CPA
Okay.
to finish out that fiscal year.
And everybody's paid their monies, their enforcement fees?
There were 2 agencies that actually did not pay for that fiscal year, but we discovered them and were able to collect in, I think it was September. So it was a little after the end of the fiscal year, but was applied.
Technically, it's an accounts receivable then. Okay, thanks.
Thank you. The committee reports for executive committee and policies and procedures, I don't have anything to report unless any other commissioners would like to
Do
report
we have
something.
anything coming up for the executive committee?
Thank you for asking
Executive
that
Officer
question. We will be scheduling both committees later in February. It's time to start the budget development process. So we'll be scheduling the executive committee meeting to deal with that, get that initiated. And then the policies and procedures committee, we're very close to having some proposed changes to the out-of-area service agreement policies and consent forms. So we'll be bringing that to that committee.
Thank you. Okay, commissioner reports, comments, or questions? Mr. Ward.
I just want to make a comment that I noticed our interest on our Wells Fargo account went way up. It's $200 now, so that was a big jump from $4 or something. I did talk to them about taking the $4 off for the statement fee, and they said they're willing to do that since we've got $130,000 in their account, so we'll save another $4.
Excellent, thank you.
Thank you for your diligence, Mr. Ward. We appreciate it. I did want to just provide a very brief update that the county tax sharing ad hoc has been working with the cities, and I believe that we are at nearing a final point where the legal counsel is providing draft documents, and so I'm hoping that within the next couple of months that proposal will be able to go to the city councils and the board of supervisors. And I know that Mr. Ward always has questions about that, so I feel like I always say we're very close, but this time it feels much closer than it has been in the past. So thank you very much.
All right, I'm going to hold you to it.
With that, meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you,
Bye.
Commissioner Cole, for joining us. Hope everything is safe at your house.
Thank you so much. I'm going to go get a chainsaw.
Thank you.
Wait, if you want to use that.
My daughter's house had a tree fall from the
No,
neighbors.
Lake Mendocino subdivision was